Imagine a life where you live by trusting your intuition, that voice inside of you that gives you that gut feeling to either do or not do something that sometimes you're afraid to trust because it seems illogical. Imagine a time where you trust yourself. You believe in the choices that you make daily with full confidence that they are the right choices. Even if they're not the most optimal to experience things that you want to experience, you trust that you're never making a wrong choice because there is always something to learn or gain from the choices that you're making. And you know that inevitably it's going to benefit you no matter what choice you make. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to distinguish your intuition from all the other feelings that happen inside of us when we're trying to make a decision, from our anxiety, the things that we want and whatnot, and just teach you how to trust your intuition. Hey y'all, this is SpiritualityU, and I'm John Wetz. I help people beat depression through spirituality and remember their authentic self. On this channel, I talk about spirituality, mental health, anxiety, depression, and the law of attraction. Anyway, let's get to it. So, I used to be only living life through my logical mind. I had to see the very linear path to things and just make connections that were obvious before I made a choice. I pretty much ignored my gut feelings. I don't want to say all the time, but most of the time, because they went kind of against what I thought made the most sense. There'd be so many times where I would find myself making what seemed like the most logical choice, but having that gut feeling inside of me that told me to make a different choice that oftentimes would be almost the exact opposite of what seemed most logical at the time. And I bet this is something you can probably relate to. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you had a time where you just knew something. You didn't know how you knew it or why you were thinking to do whatever it was you were thinking about doing, but you had this gut feeling inside of you to take a certain action, and maybe you followed it and you were happy you did, or maybe you didn't follow it and were kind of kicking yourself in the ass afterwards. I know that's happened to me many times, and I have a very recent example of this. Just the other day, I was taking a friend of mine to an appointment, and when we were leaving out, I had the option of either going right or left. If I went left, that's the most easy, straightforward path to where we were trying to get to. It was also the fastest way, normally. But if I went right, it would take about 10 minutes longer, but for some reason, I had that gut feeling, and it wasn't like a hard pull. It was just kind of a, going right seems like the right thing to do right now for some reason. Going that longer way just seems like the smart thing to do, even though it made no logical sense, and we were running late already. So it's like, logically, it makes the most sense to go left and go the shortest route. So we went the left route, the shortest route, because it made the most logical sense. And about 5 minutes down the road, we run into a traffic jam. And not just a normal traffic jam. There's normally not even a traffic jam where we were. Like, it's normally pretty steady flow of traffic. So I'm like, shit, there's something definitely wrong here. Pull up Google Maps, and yeah, sure enough, there's an accident up ahead that it seems like dead stopped. There's no movement happening whatsoever. Wait about 2 minutes, don't move anywhere. I'm thinking, we are not going to make it to this appointment in time. Man, I should have listened. But then it got better because it was like pretty much pummeling it into my head of listen to your intuition. You've learned this lesson many times, and you normally do, but in that exact scenario, it was like I figured he was going to question why I was willing to go the longer route because I had no reason to think there was an accident or anything. I hadn't checked the maps, but there was no real indicator of why I felt so strongly to go the other way. So anyway, everyone's getting ready to do U-turns and turn around and whatnot, and somebody got hyper impatient. It's just a 2-lane road, 1 lane each way. And I don't even know how this person did what they were doing, but as I'm getting ready to do my U-turn, somebody way behind decided, oh, I'm more important than everyone else, and just flies up on the left-hand side as I'm starting to do my U-turn. And thankfully, I was paying attention and swerved. It was just the minorest clip in my car, like no damage done to either vehicle, but nonetheless, it was very much a frustrating situation because who wants to be in any kind of an accident, whether it's minor or not, I'm sitting there like, oh my God. It's like all this stuff happened simply because we went left, which was the most logical way, but I had this little feeling of, I should be going right instead, even though it makes no sense. And I know, my friend, God love him, he honestly listens to me go on and on about some of this stuff sometimes where I think I'm driving him crazy, but we were almost going to be late already. So it's like, why would I willingly go the other way? Well, I kind of got my answer. It's one of those things where it's like I had no logical way of knowing, but somehow I knew something was up. Well, here's what I've learned over the last few years of trying to really live based off of following my intuition, which most of the time I do. I mean, I'm still a person, I'm going to make mistakes, and it's even harder when you have, someone else with you. Like, it's hard to explain sometimes making choices that seem highly illogical just based off of a feeling. A lot of people kind of question that. But what I've kind of learned is we have multiple voices inside of us competing with the voice of intuition. And I like to refer to these different voices as the voice of anxiety, the voice of desire, the voice of logic, and the voice of intuition. And I'm going to explain the differences of them right now. And when I started really thinking of it like this, it made it a lot easier for me to start pinpointing what was driving my thoughts and my actions so I could choose the one that really was in most alignment with what I felt was the best thing I could do at any given time. The voice of anxiety is often the loudest for people. This is the voice that is constantly saying, what about this? What if this happens? This might happen though. It's trying to keep you safe. It's always on the lookout for danger. This is the voice that tries its hardest to keep you from heartache or physical pain. But sometimes it kicks into overdrive and it goes a little wonky and can sound like your voice of intuition, but it's really a fear-inspired voice. Don't get me wrong, the voice of anxiety actually does help and it serves its purpose. It does keep us from getting into bad situations sometimes. But when it becomes overly dominant, it can start to keep us from healthy, happy situations that were perfectly okay for us because it's giving you all these scenarios of what could go wrong and making you be afraid of things that aren't really likely to even happen. The voice of anxiety is often more up in our head as well. It's what I consider more of a mind-based thinking. Next, you have the voice of desire. This is the voice that drives all of our wants, the things that we want with like love and affection, or the foods that we like. The voice of desire can also be a very loud and dominating voice inside of you. It does serve its purpose as well, though. It helps guide us to our excitement. Also, like the voice of anxiety, the voice of desire is also more of a mind-driven voice. The voice of desire is very good at working with the voice of anxiety and the voice of logic to look for a compromise that feels safe but rewarding. And it does this because it makes sense to do it. It keeps you out of harm's way. But this will also cause us to start searching for more instant gratification in search of happiness. It'll cause us to be more shallow in what we want and do things that are less appealing to our soul and trying to just get like a quick boost of happiness. But that happiness will leave about as fast as the boost of it came because what you're getting at this point is not something that you really want deep down. It's just a quick, safe option that doesn't make you feel alive. It's kind of like, doing those impulse buys at the cash register where you spend the money and you kind of regret it, even a few minutes later because you realize you didn't really need it. You just saw it. And that's kind of what that triggers is this voice of desire, which then triggers the anxiety and the logic. And it's like, well, I can get this little thing and it'll make me happy. But it doesn't make you happy. It just makes you happy for a moment. While getting these kind of instant gratification type happiness hits can be helpful at times, if that's the only kind of happy we're experiencing, it's going to leave our souls starving for experiences that are more in alignment with our soul purpose and the reason we're here on this planet. Then we have the voice of logic. This one tries to work with a blend of all the other three, the voice of intuition, voice of anxiety, and voice of desire. It tries to find the best possible outcome to make all of these voices happy. It has the hardest time, though, with the voice of intuition because it doesn't fully understand it. The voice of logic looks for very real-world, tangible patterns that it can recognize quickly and use that information to make the best choice to navigate life for us. We've also been pretty conditioned to believe that this is like the only way or the best way to live through life. There's a lot of stuff out there that discourages using more of that intuition, that heart-based and energy to get through things because, well, it can steer you wrong. Well, the flip side of that is So can your logic, because your logic, like I explained in my story earlier, it doesn't listen to your intuition, and they're coming from two very different places inside of you. The voice of logic is always looking for a more linear path to get through things, which the voice of intuition can bounce all over the place and seem highly illogical and just kind of random. If it's not directly connected for the voice of logic, it's not as easy for it to use it to determine what's best for you. And last, we have the voice of intuition. This voice doesn't get influenced as much by the other voices. It's the one that's trying to influence the other voices. However, it doesn't get anywhere near as loud as the other voices. It doesn't try to dominate you. It just gives off this very calm, confident thought inside of you. This is the one thing that is different, because the logic, the anxiety, and the desire are more felt up in here in your head. It is more mind-based thinking. Your intuition, that's felt in your heart. It's like your heart energy. It reads stuff on a vibrational level and an energetic level. It's not looking at the real world stuff. It is looking at the unseen connections that it feels. And again, the voice of intuition does try to work with the other voices, but it's not going to overpower them. It's just going to sit there inside of you being very calm. It can and will tell you to take risks that your voice of anxiety freaks out about, because the voice of anxiety is like, holy crap, this is really not working for me. This seems kind of scary, and the potential for getting hurt is very real. But so is the potential for it going right and getting things that would make you excited. However, like I said, the voice of anxiety is a little bit louder, so it's going to try to overpower the other. It's up to you to be brave and listen to that voice of intuition. On the flip side of that, the voice of intuition can go directly against the voice of desire and tell you that something that you're really wanting is not meant for you. It's not the right time. And the voice of desire sometimes is just like, no, I want this. This is definitely the best thing for me. And it just overpowers it and thinks that it can force whatever it wants to have happen. Your voice of intuition just kind of sits back and is like, all right, guess we're going back down this road. I'm trying to guide you here. I see something that you don't. But if you want to learn a lesson this way, we'll learn a lesson this way. The voice of intuition doesn't always follow a linear path. It doesn't have to actually look at like direct connections. It can see very minor connections out there. And again, it is more of an energy that you feel. It's not something that you so much think, it's something that you feel. It will often come in like just a quick little intuitive hit that you just get this vibe of, this is the thing to do right now. But then all your other little voices decide to start kicking in, and it's like the anxious one is like, are you sure though? What if this happens? The desire is like, well, that's not really what I want to do. And then the logic comes in and tries to unite them all, and it's like, well, these two have a good point. I don't really see what's going on here either, so let's go with this. It makes the most sense. And your voice of intuition that you kind of want to listen to is just sitting back, like I said, being like, you'll learn eventually. The only real surefire way to learn the difference between those voices is to start making choices based off of them. Try to listen, try to figure out what they're saying and which one's actually talking. It's okay if you make the wrong choice. There's never going to be a wrong choice, though. It's going to help you identify which of those voices sound like what to you. Because while they sound, like I said, some are louder to me, some are calmer to me, it may be slightly different for you. No one else on this planet is going to be able to help you really identify those, because you are the only person that gets to experience your experiences from your point of view, gets to feel your anxiety, feel your excitement, feel your desires, and feel your intuition. So while people can try to guide you to show you what to look for based off what they have seen, it's ultimately up to you to distinguish between what it is that you're hearing and feeling inside of you, because it is solely your experience with this. Understand, though, these choices don't have to be extreme life-altering changes. For me, it honestly started out with this little, at the time, I really wasn't even into spirituality that much. I kept feeling like I would know things, and, my nerdy ass mind just sitting there being like, maybe I've got powers like the X-Men or something, and I can see the future or feel something. Like I started at least getting into like the empath thing, and I was like, this is cool. I feel things that other people don't feel. That's not really the truth. I honestly believe at this point that anyone can tap into intuition type, psychic type abilities and empathic type abilities. It's just a matter of whether or not you believe you can, and if you're actually open to that energy flowing through you to do it. But for me, I started kind of learning it through my daily commute, of all things. Like, I would just get this intuitive hit on which road to take home. And I wouldn't check, Waze or Google Maps or anything like that. I started trying to make the choice based off of how I felt exactly. And there were days where it was like the voice of desire was sitting there, be like, this is happening this other way, so you should definitely go this way. And fortunately, the roads that I took, it was like a frontage road, which is a road that's right next to the highway. So I could kind of see which road was having an issue, if it either was, when I was driving on it. I wouldn't know beforehand before I got on it, but I could tell, well, this way, I shouldn't say I could tell, because I really couldn't tell until I started driving it. But as I'm actually driving, I can see what's happening, I can see if the highway is actually backed up at some point, or if I just took the frontage road for no reason and getting stopped by stoplights for nothing. But this was a very easy way for me to start to see like real world results by following my intuition, or what I thought it was. And that's kind of what let me identify these different voices as well. Because some days I'd be like, oh no, I'm definitely going to be late if I take this way. Or, if I go this way, I'll prove to myself that I can see this kind of stuff. And then the logical mind was just kind of like, why don't you just take the same way every day? Like, why are you even doing this? So don't get too caught up in if you make the wrong choice. Just make a choice, stick with it, and learn the difference. It's the only way that I know of to really get to the bottom of it, because, like I said, you're the only one having those experiences. So I'll leave you with this. Try to start figuring that out for yourself. Like, think of the 4 different voices: the voice of logic, voice of anxiety, voice of desire, and the voice of intuition, and see which one sounds like what to you. I would love to hear the stories about it in the comments below. Times that your intuition kind of kicked in and helped you, or you think it did, and times where you wish you would have listened to it, but you didn't, and you kind of got to see why you should have listened to it. Understanding the differences of these voices, though, and actually asking myself which one was leading me, really helped me to live a more conscious life and be aware of my emotions, my beliefs, and my thoughts, and just what was driving my choices. And I fully believe that this whole intuition-based living thing is something that every person on this planet can do if they just decide to. I realize it's not going to be for everyone right away, but for me, it's helped me a lot. Like, it's helped me really be able to trust myself, trust the universe, and trust just the general flow of things. Like, I don't get so worked up that things are never going to work out, because I've learned that things are always gonna work out. And worst case, I just make a mistake and I learn something. Anyway, love y'all. If you felt the connection with me in this video, if you feel like seeing more, hit the subscribe and bell button. That way it'll pop up for you when I do other videos. And if you like this video and you got something from it, maybe toss me a like. That way it will help other people find the video too, that it might help. So anyway, peace out. Catch you guys here soon.